Greetings and welcome to the Richard Dolan Show, where every week we fight the good fight. My guest today is Dean Alioto. He's a filmmaker, a storyteller, and depending on who you ask, he might be the original godfather of found footage horror. Before the Blair Witch Project was even a glimmer in anyone's camcorder, Dean had already taken audiences on a terrifying alien abduction ride with his now infamous 1989 film UFO Abduction. That project was so convincing it actually accidentally launched a wave of conspiracy theories and late night TV specials. Yeah. Um, However, I really would like to talk about his he's got part one and part two of something called The Alien Perspective. Part two just came out, and we will be showing that trailer a little later. Dean is a guy with great stories. He's very funny. He's got a deep curiosity about the unknown. I think you're going to enjoy this one. Dean, welcome to the program.
Richard, thank you for having me.
So we just met for the first time last week at Contact in the Desert, and it was a lot of fun. And I thought we have to talk some more in the future. It just was too enjoyable. It was too interesting, and I thought I think people would really like to hear what you have to say about this and a lot of other subjects as well. Maybe we'll get into all of those.
Right on.
Yeah. So, so before we get into any of the details about your current project, which is quite interesting, I would like to ask you, like, what brought you to the subject of UFOs? Are you in the UFO community? Are you like arm's length with the UFO community? Where do you see yourself, and what's your whole take on this subject in general?
Okay, Richard, that's very private, what you're asking. And this is, I do know you, and I feel like I'm connected with you, and we've got the SCTV thing going.
Yeah,
That's a
all right,
whole
people don't
bond.
even know about this. So we connected. I don't even know if people realize, like, I'm a Second City television fanatic, guilty as charged. And we talked about this, and you too. Like, we can roll with SCTV trivia.
Oh,
So
hell yeah.
that's just a thing.
Yeah.
That's a whole side
This,
thing there.
and it transcends the phenomenon. People should know this. This is much deeper than that. Let's see, to answer your question. Yeah, it has always been there for me. I guess the best way to kick it off is to talk about divorce, because when my parents divorced, it was a strange arrangement where my mother took my brothers. I haven't got older and younger. I'm the messed up middle child, and I stayed with my father for 3 years, who was a teacher, and he was trying to get tenure, and so we were moving constantly. But there was this one apartment that we were in where every night, I miss my brothers and my mother, and I would look out at the stars, and I would get solace there because in my brain I thought there's got to be another maybe species out there, and maybe there's a little boy who's going through the same thing that I am.
Seriously.
Seriously.
Wow. Okay.
So it was almost this thing that was calling to me and pacifying me. And it definitely made me feel like whatever I was going through was trivial. And so it kind of fed me, gave me strength. And then I would say, I'm watching In Search of, I'm seeing Chariots of the Gods in the
Hmm.
theater. I was into the Bermuda Triangle, Bigfoot, of course, Loch Ness Monster, who I'd like to do a little bragging. I got my daughter to believe that the Loch Ness Monster was real longer than the Easter Bunny and Santa Claus. She may still even believe that there could be something there.
There are some people who do believe the Loch Ness monster is real. So there you go.
We don't know.
I
We
haven't
don't know.
really given that one too much cogitation, but you never know.
You never know. So, and then Spielberg shows up, and I remember seeing Star Wars, and because I'm a very visual person, which makes sense for my vocation,
Mhm.
I had to watch the movie 4 times just to track what the story was about. Now, this is a story that is as complicated as The Wizard of Oz, you
Are you
know?
talking about Close Encounters of the Third Kind,
Yeah,
or
Close Encounters of
okay,
the Third Kind.
yeah.
You've got to, rescue the princess and take down the bad guys.
Wait, is it
Stupid
Star
simple.
Wars or Close Encounters?
Star Wars. That
Yeah,
was my
Star
first
Wars.
gateway to sci-fi. And so it seems like a non sequitur, but it ties in. So
Okay.
I see this film and I'm like, oh my God, this is what cinema can be. And it's sci-fi and it's aliens. Even Luke Skywalker, they don't get that. He is an alien. It starts out in a galaxy far, far away. So maybe he was a Nordic. Who knows? He's got blonde hair. He could have been a Nordic.
There you go.
So then, 6 months later, drops Close Encounters of the Third Kind. And that was a whole new version of sci-fi. Same year.
I had my chronology all off. Yeah, that's right. Star Wars was first.
Yeah. Came out around my birthday,
Yeah.
like third, fourth week of May, and then December, boom, here drops Close Encounters. And at first I'm like, well, hold on, I'm a Star Wars fan. I don't challenge my sci-fi here. But I'm watching the film and know very little about it.
Mhm.
And then all of a sudden, I'm experiencing something that isn't a movie. I'm experiencing a spiritual journey, an awakening, an awe that just took it next level.
I
Again, I
just want to
didn't know.
say,
Yeah,
for people who have not seen Close Encounters of the Third Kind, I mean, it's a movie that's almost 50 years old now. It's still a classic movie. And I do think like that's one that people in the who are interested in UAP or UFOs, it's worth rewatching.
it,
It's
it
still a
is,
great
and
movie.
it really is. And the thing is, guy, I don't want to do any spoilers, but I love the movie so much. It's kind of like a benchmark for me when I'm making movies. Can I create awe? Can I have, like originally Spielberg was looking at Al Pacino, who turned it down. He talked to Steve McQueen. Steve
Are you
McQueen,
serious? I had no
I
idea
swear
that
to
actor.
God. Yeah, Steve McQueen, he met with him in this bar, and where Steve broke up a fight, of course, a bar fight. That's Steve McQueen.
Mhm.
And he said, I love your script. And Spielberg's like, awesome. I'm going to work with the Steve McQueen. And
I
he
could
says,
have
but I can't.
totally been into Close Encounters with Steve McQueen. I could have completely been on board with that.
Oh, yeah.
Nothing against
Yeah.
Richard Dreyfuss. Was that him? Yeah. No, Steve
Yeah.
McQueen, man. He's the guy.
Yeah. So here's what happened. So he goes, I love the project, but I can't do it. And he goes, why? Schedule? We'll move the schedule. And he's like, no, no, no. It says here in the script that there is a part here where he cries. And he goes, yes. And he goes, I don't cry. That's not something I do. And he goes, okay, well, I'll rewrite it. Of course, Steve McQueen, I'll rewrite for you. He goes, no, that scene is the reason why I love this character so much. I would never want to rob this film, your film, of that. So he was a pass. All this time, and by the way, he's working on Close Encounters while he's shooting Jaws, which went on for like 14 months, something ridiculous. So Richard Dreyfuss hears about the script and he says, let me read it. And he's reading it. And he says, I want to play Roy Neary. And he goes, no, no, no. It's, this is, I envision a different character. And as you may know, the original character was someone who worked for the government and was part of a disinformation campaign that was going to discredit the UFO community. And then he witnesses something and it changed. And that was like the very first draft. I'm going
Huh.
into the weeds here.
I think I
Sorry.
knew.
So what happens is he keeps hammering him. He'll walk by and he'll say, Jack Nicholson is the wrong guy, or Pacino doesn't have a sense of humor. And he's just sabotaging every actor that
Oh, Richard
Spielberg's
Dreyfuss was.
considering. Yeah.
Oh,
And
wow.
so finally he walks by and Richard Dreyfuss, again, hammers again. I'm your guy, I'm a guy. And he goes, all right, all right, all right. Because Dreyfuss said this. He goes, he's a child. This character still has his child innocence. None of the actors were seeing that. And Spielberg couldn't argue with that. And so that's how Richard Dreyfuss came into,
And he did a great job. So
yeah,
taking nothing
Peter
away.
Peter Pan syndrome. Yeah.
Yeah, it would have. All right, that's very interesting. So that was kind of your benchmark and your inspiration. So that's
Yeah.
what
So
kind of
I
launched you into this subject, I guess.
yeah, that really cemented it for me. And then I'm now starting, and I'm seeing Martin Scorsese films, and Raging Bull and Taxi Driver, all that stuff.
Mhm.
And so that's kind of there, but there's something that is transcendental with Spielberg movies. And then E.T. comes out.
Yep.
And I'm the middle child, just like Elliot. I'm the nerdy kid that dreams of UFOs and is into all that stuff. My mother, single mother, when I moved back with my brothers, was raising us. It was the same age when I moved back that Elliot was, and dreaming of the stars. And so here was a movie that said, I'm going to take your life, and instead of it feeling broken, I'm going to celebrate it. And I'm going to partner you up with this phenomenon. And I came home and I literally said to my mother, I go, I'm a filmmaker. And that was it.
Wow. Wow. It's so amazing. We all get into this field in a different way. Like for me, it wasn't through movies at all. I watched those movies. I was not a fan of E.T., the movie. Gotta say, it wasn't my thing. Although I remembered I don't know if anyone remembers this, but the first scene where the kid he's at the refrigerator and he's humming a tune, and the tune was Elvis Costello's "Accidents Will Happen," which I caught at the time because I was a big Elvis Costello fan. But
Oh
I thought,
yeah.
what a neat little thing to. I'm sure this was Spielberg's idea or someone's idea to get that tune in there. But E.T. was like it didn't really do it for me. But then again, I'm not a guy who got into filmmaking. Like you appreciated it in a different way,
Yeah.
and so that's very interesting. Yeah, we all have our path. We all have our path in.
Yeah, and it was kind of this, a piece here, a piece there, anytime. I mean, if we reverse engineer how you got into this, I'm sure there was like little clues, little nudges along the way that lead you here. And if you're really ignoring your life and you're not living in the moment, then that goes by and that'll be a missed
Yeah,
opportunity. But I was grabbing it left and right and going, "Oh my God."
yeah, very interesting. So it was
Yeah.
like there was this artistic element of the filmmaker in you that was drawn to it, but I'm sure there was this just natural curiosity, like the grandness of the cosmos and the desire to connect with other people. Like you're thinking when you were a kid, is there another kid out there like me? So that's all very that's really kind of interesting. I don't know if I've ever spoken to anyone who actually explained their interest in this subject in quite that way.
No, I've killed all of them, and so it's just me now.
It's just you.
And
So,
so I'm the last remaining. I'm patient zero. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because as much as I'll have moments where I'm drifting away and I'm doing other films and into other films and stuff, and I've shot westerns and stuff, I always come back to this.
mhm.
And so I do remember the thing that really pushed me over that because you'll get burnt. And I heard you were on Danny Jones. It was a great interview. Oh my God, if people haven't seen it, go see the Danny Jones.
Oh, thanks.
Very
It was fun.
robust interview. And you were saying how at nighttime now you need to go, okay, I need a little break from this. And whereas you would just keep grinding and grinding until 2 a.m. in the morning. And so
Yes.
yeah, and I've certainly over the 7 years of making these docs, I've had moments where, like a year and a half ago, I went and I did this dark supernatural horror comedy, a straight feature with actors and everything, just to kind of take a little break and then come back, which is good with a new, hopefully new perspective. But the thing that pulled me back next level was Communion, the book.
Yeah.
That,
Which did for so many people.
right?
Which did for so many people.
Yeah, that scared the hell out of me more than any Stephen King novel.
Yeah.
And I listened, and we talked about this. I listened to the Roddy McDowell, which is really hard to get his narration, the reading of it.
I had no idea that Roddy McDowell even narrated that. And then we looked at it. This is last week, I guess,
Yeah.
and it's like only available on compact disc, something like
Yeah.
that.
Oh, yeah, on cassette.
Or
Just on
maybe eight
cassette
track
tape.
tape. I don't know.
Yeah.
Not eight track, but it's like it's ridiculously expensive too, I think.
Yeah. And so listening to that was just and then reading the book after it, because that was an abridged version, just sent me off. And I'm like, oh my God, how do I, as a filmmaker, how do I translate this for an audience? And I couldn't think of anything. And in the meantime, I'm getting close to 25 years old. I'm 24 years old. And all of my idols, Spielberg, Scorsese, Orson Welles, all of these guys, Coppola, they had all made their first film by 25. And so for some reason, I thought if I don't do that, I'm literally going to evaporate into the ether. And so I, I, I wanted to do something. And a buddy of mine says, "Hey, I'll fund your first film." And I'm like, "Awesome. How much, do you have?" And he says, "Well, I got 6,500 bucks." And I laughed and said, because back then it was only 16 millimeter and 35 millimeter. Well,
Yeah.
that's way too expensive format. It wasn't DSLR, the video cameras
Yeah, we're
digital
in
like we
the
have
late
now.
80s here now, mid 80s, late 80s.
We're 88. We're
Yeah.
88
Okay.
here.
Yeah.
And so I kind of blow him off, and I'm shooting with a buddy of mine doing wedding videos and stuff like that. And then I hit on the idea of, what if we have this be a family, a pedestrian family situation where there's like a birthday party and it's a house that's in the hills. home that's in the hills. And then something really jacked up happens, and then we keep the camera running the whole time. And it'll be operated by a young kid, 16 years old, who just got this new camera. So that was the setup. And I thought that's great because I can put the audience in first person, literally, right there, insert them into it.
This was
It
like
was
never done, but in the mid late 80s. I don't know if any treatments that were quite like that. Are
no,
there?
no.
Yeah.
There's some people had said Cannibal Holocaust. That's the first. That's not a found footage film. That's a straight film, and then they cut to footage that they said that was recovered. That's not found footage, and so there was no reference, regardless whether it's
Yeah.
the first or not. There was no reference, and so I thought part of me was going, well, I guess this is just a gimmick to get me to tick that box. Then there was a buddy of mine who said, "You're an idiot. This is really, really cool. This is, going to be fun and it's going to get out there." And then that became a whole other nightmare when we actually got it distributed, but the distribution warehouse burned to the ground and I lost my main master of my artwork.
Yeah, but meanwhile, you shot this video that I don't know how long it was even, but it was basically a found footage style video of an alien encounter, right?
Yeah, 66
Essentially.
minutes of these guys go out to investigate this blackout and they see a ship and aliens. And
Yeah.
then pretty much one by one, they're abducted, and it's all caught on tape. And then someone, the next level to this was, and where all the conspiracy and the infamy.
Well, wait, you're going past too much good stuff here.
All
So,
right,
like,
sorry.
just describe a little bit, please, how, like, who played, you had aliens in this. How did
All
that
right.
whole thing
So,
happen? And how did you get it to look, and how did you like choreograph it, or how did you make this happen?
well, first of all, it's no day in the park to work with alien agents. They're really obnoxious, very demanding. That's a whole other thing. Um, so I ripped off Spielberg in the sense that I went and got 8, 9-year-old girls to play the aliens
Bingo.
because their bodies are slight androgynous, which is what has been described. And so I gave my effects guy, I said, look, I got $750. You need to build a UFO out in the forest, and you need to come up with the masks and hands and everything for this film. And luckily, I found someone who said, "Yeah, no problem, we're doing it."
Yeah.
And so he literally, we went out to the location a couple days beforehand, and he's got his VW bus, and he's unloading sheet wood and foam core, and he's putting this thing together, and it looks like a Christmas tree. It's got this, 2x4s for the foundation. Then he's got layer after layer, and it starts out small, then it gets bigger in the middle, and then goes up. So it ends up kind of like, was the goal, was the UFO, the egg-shaped craft that like Spielberg had, which looked like kind of an ornament. I just really gravitated towards that design. And so we staple gun this whole thing together, and I'm going, this is going to look like crap. This is going to be like, Ed Wood. But we tape all the seams and everything, and at nighttime, it is a UFO. We're only
Wow.
doing one side. It literally comes alive. And the funny part was that the girls, so the eyes are always black, right? They've got to be black. Well, so we do that. We give them these black lenses and we cut little pinholes so they can see. Well, the pinholes work great in the workshop during the day. At nighttime, these little girls are bumping into each other. They're bumping into the ship. It was a comedy routine. And so finally they were begging, can we please, see a little. So I had to scrape out that so we could
Right.
see. But they crushed it. They did a great job, and they had
Wow.
certain cues where they had to come up and they had to turn at the right time, and first we reveal one, then we reveal the second one, and then from another direction comes the third one. So all this was choreographed, and because not just because I'm trying to, when you're young, you're a control freak about everything. But I knew this character. I had been that nerdy teenager who was into this stuff. And so I played Michael Van Hees. So I'm playing the young kid and with a new camera. And so it was all improvised. I hired improv actors. And the reason that was very beneficial for me to play Michael was that if I or whenever I needed to cue the cast that it was time to go to the next scene, I would say some like word that would be what's that or leading them there.
Ah,
And
right.
also I yeah, and then for the crew, I had a headset on, And so, it was, I guess drumming helps you get that coordination, but I would have to turn and say, all right, cue the light, cue the back door, cue Alien 2. And while I'm still operating, so it was a bit of a juggling act, but you're 24, you don't know any better. It's just like,
No, so you pulled it off. You create this short video, and just can you tell us the rest of the story? Because I do want to get to your current work. We haven't forgotten about it, but this is just too good to leave aside.
no, absolutely. So we make this thing, and then I'm from the Bay Area, San Francisco, so we do a road trip to Los Angeles to sell the movie, and we are showing them this trailer that we've cut, and it goes over like a lead balloon. It just everyone was like, "What the hell is this?" I had this woman who was the head of this big distribution company, and she stopped at midway and said, "What the F is this?" And we said, "Well, that's our trailer." And she said, "You guys need to leave right now and never, ever come back here unless you have a real movie."
Wow.
And so we're thinking, because we don't know, that this is just a fail. In fact, I had showed the film to the casting director who cast our movie. And she watched it and she said, this is awful. And I thought she was joking. And so she's like, people are talking over each other. It's handheld. You can't really see anything. It's dark. And I said, well, that's all by design. But again, it's good to be ahead of your time. It's not good to be a decade ahead of your time, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we think we failed. We get home, and then the last person we happen to meet with, he calls and says, "So are we doing this or what?" And so I'm like, let's do it. So the last distributor we spoke to took on the project, and he was a bit of a character. He shows me the first mock-up artwork, and it says, "Fantastic, awe-inspiring, Rolling Stone magazine." Something else, New York Times. And I go, "Wait, how did you get them to review?" And he goes, "Kid, I didn't get them to review anything. I just put that up there." And I go, "Stop. We're not doing that." And he goes, all right, I'll change it." So he changes it to Rolling Bone magazine. Dude, this was
Seriously.
so ghetto. Yeah. So,
Wow.
and I'm like, but
Guerrilla
at least it's,
marketing.
yeah. So at least it's getting out there, and that's it. And so, I thought, win the lottery, it's going to get out there. So then I call the check in a month later and I go, "Hey, how are the sales going?" He goes, it's flames and, on fire. And I'm like, "Awesome. How many units?" And he goes, No. It literally went up in flames." I go, "What do you mean?" He says, "The warehouse that we have all of our master tapes burned to the ground, and all your artwork is gone." And I'm not saying this, but sometimes fires happen intentionally or unintentionally for insurance reasons. Who knows?
Mhm.
Anyway, this was a victim of the fire. And I thought, well, that's it. That's the universe saying, there's your 15 minutes of fame. Move on, kid. Make a real movie. So I go about my life, and I think that's it, you know.
Mhm.
And then I get that phone call from this character named Sean David Morton. And
Yes.
yeah,
I,
Sean David
I
Morton.
I have known Sean David Morton.
Yeah,
I have, yes, I've spent time with Sean David Morton. That's a whole other story for another time.
right. So he says, um, "Hey, we're trying to track down this footage that was found." First time I heard that term, and I go, "What footage?" And she goes, "Well, it's a family that gets abducted by extraterrestrials." And I said, "Well, it wasn't found. We made it." And he goes, "Do you know what has been happening to your film? Do you know what's going on with it?" And I said, "Dude, who the hell are you?"
Mhm.
"I'm Sean David Morton. I just came back from the International UFO Congress Convention where it was shown without credits. And it's believed to be the real thing. And Lieutenant Colonel Don Ware claimed it was authentic. And UFO researcher Tom Dongo, he was the one that it was given to. He was the one that inserted it unintentionally into the UFO community."
What year are we
So
dealing with here at this point?
90, 93,
Yeah, okay. Early 90s,
maybe. Yeah, 92, 93, early 90s.
right?
And so I'm, of course I'm laughing because I'm like, that's the strangest thing I've ever heard. I didn't even know that could happen. So someone apparently got a copy, like some advanced screeners, I guess, went out to some mom and pop video stores. Someone grabbed it, edited off the credits, and then just sent it in there. So
Wow.
I, yeah. And so he said, and I said, well, that's a funny story, but people should know that it's not real. And he says, well, three shows want you to come on there and show footage of it. And I go, oh, seriously, what shows? And he goes, Unsolved Mysteries, hard copy, and a show called Encounters for Fox. And I said, well, I guess Unsolved Mysteries is out. And Sean says, well, not necessarily. And I said, no, Sean, I'm pretty sure it's called Unsolved and not Solved Mysteries. And then so we considered hard copy, but ultimately the Fox show Encounters, they said that we will give you a little bumper of where people can get your video, and we'll do 6.5 minutes where hard copy was only going to do 4. So that was negotiated. So I went on national TV and I debunked my own film.
Yeah.
And I thought, that's my 15 minutes of fame. Time to move on.
Is
And
this
then,
is this film available for people to see anywhere? Like, are there links that
yes, yeah,
we'll put one below so
sure.
that people can see it.
Yeah, it's on Blu-ray, and it is like, I mean, I've loaded it up with like 2 commentaries, and it had its anniversary, which I'll briefly talk about later. But and then I think you can also get it on Amazon. But anyway, so I think that's it. And then I'm working on this Stephen J. Cannell crime series, and the head writer says to me, I heard about your movie. And I'm like, yeah. He says, I want to see it. And I go, no, because it's not the slick Spielberg, Scorsese vibe that I'm trying to, emulate as a filmmaker. This is all, again, this is before Blair Witch. And he said to me, shut up and show me the movie. I show it to him. He calls me back the next day and says, I can get us a TV movie deal with this. And I said, yeah, okay, Paul, tell you what, I'll take a story by credit. I'm going to direct it. You and I will produce it together. Bye-bye. So he calls me back a few hours later. We have a meeting at Dick Clark Productions next week. So we walk into Dick
Wow.
Clark
Yeah.
Productions. Neil Stearns, the head of the movie made-for-TV movie department. We greet him. Paul, this is Dean. Shake hands. We go right to the VCR and we put in the 6.5-minute encounter segment. Neil laughs his ass off and he shakes her hand and says, you have a deal. We walk out of there and I turn to Paul and I go, I'm confused. Did that result in an actual TV movie deal? And he goes, yeah. He says, that's not normal. So don't think that's normal. That never happens. I've never sold anything in the room. So it's at UPN is interested, and then it goes to Showtime, and then it gets in a turnaround, which is when they take too long because Business Affairs is screwing around. And so UPN calls back and says, is it still available? We're about to do our first rollout of TV movies, and we want yours to be the flagship one. And so again, I'm thinking, oh my God, won the lottery. And so we make a deal with UPN, and my budget now was 1.25 million, and we're going to shoot in Vancouver, so it's 1.7 because the dollar is so strong at
Canadian.
that point.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, this is 90, or excuse me, this is 1990, the end of 97. I want to say 1997. And so
This is
I have
after
my,
the alien autopsy video came out then, Ray Santilli.
yeah. And in
That was
fact,
in 95, I think.
Bob Kiviat, um, he, he was the one who actually produced the Encounter segment on Fox that I went on.
Uh-huh.
And he told me about this footage before it became a show. And I told him, I said, everything you've told me, it sounds BS to me. I'm just telling you. And Bob said, he said to me, he goes, yeah, you're probably right, but I'm going to make a crap load of money off of this. So there you go. And they did. But anyway,
This is Hollywood. This is what
this
it's
is
about.
Hollywood.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I had my first anxiety attack because I don't know how to spend $1.7 million. And so we came in $500,000 under budget, shot it up. And then, this crazy business, everyone at the network got fired while we were shooting our movie. And I didn't shoot it one night. I shot it in a week this time. And we got the guys from the X-Files to do the ship and aliens because I'm trying to spend money left and right. We come back. They watch a 2-week cut. And I'm not kidding. We heard this directly from their TV department, movie department. They said it was the worst screen of their career, that they were actually throwing money or food at the screen. And the head of the network said, thank God we're here to save the network. And so they put it up to slaughter. They throw it on a Tuesday night primetime slot. Well, it gets them the highest ratings that they've ever had for a primetime Tuesday slot. And they put more footage in with some BS explanation that with government hidden, government secret technology, we were able to pull out more footage. And it gets even better ratings. And then they say that'll never be on this network again. We're at 1998 January. So a
They said it'll
year.
never be on the network again because they didn't sign
Yeah,
off on it to begin with. And
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, it makes their predecessors look like they knew what they were doing. So a year
What
and
an
a half.
industry. How
Oh,
crazy.
it's lovely. It's lovely. And so a year and a half later, Blair Witch comes out, and then it came back to me that the head of the network, Dean Valentine was his name, said, "Well, maybe these guys weren't completely out of completely wackos that they had this idea." So it was kind of a nice vindication thing. But again, I'm going, well, that was it. That's my 50 minutes of fame. And then um, online hits, and a bevy of new conspiracy theories come out about me and the film, and that I was
Oh,
hired by the government to remake my own film to discredit the original one, which is real, is what is being purported. And I,
ah, because they
so
saw it at the International UFO Congress in Laughlin, Nevada in 1993. They're like, this has to be real.
yeah,
I'm just
exactly.
guessing.
Yeah, no, 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 you're dead on. And so the original version, by the way, was called UFO Abduction, Case File 77, because Close Encounters of the Third Kind came out in 77, so it was a nod to them. But the remake was called the McPherson Tape that we were doing for
Okay.
UPN. And in maybe some territories, it was actually called that, but ultimately they wiped that away and they called it a very imaginative name, which was Alien Abduction Incident in Lake County. And and then the original became the OG McPherson tape. And so it
Okay.
just ended up
Wow.
becoming that.
It just took on this crazy, like a cat with nine lives. It just kept going, all these different iterations.
Oh,
And it
I
just,
feel like the Forrest Gump just being dragged along. I'm not that clever that I could have engineered even a fraction of this. I just feel like, what next is, going to come out
it's
of this.
fascinating. I figured we would talk about this for like maybe 5 or 10 minutes, but it's too fascinating. Like you just had to tell the whole story.
Sorry.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. So I'm so glad that we did, and we must link so that people can see whatever's available for people to see. They have to be able to see this.
Yeah. Well,
They
it's
have to be able to.
yeah, there was going to be a third version. Paramount, um, they have a genre low budget division that had greenlit it, and then that division closed down, and so there is a third version for a script that I may or may not do someday. But anyway,
Um,
that's the tale of that.
uh, Thank you. I hope that people watching enjoyed it as much as I did. So I do want to ask you though about some of the current projects you're working on. You're working on something that I am personally kind of into these days, which is the alien perspective. Just personally, I find myself increasingly as I study this whole subject of UFOs and what does it mean, non-human intelligences. Um, I like to speculate about NHIs. I like to speculate about aliens, why they might be here, what they may be like. Um, there's other people out there. You mentioned communion earlier. Whitley Strieber is one of those people who I think is still very, very active in thinking about these questions. His recent book is called The Fourth Mind, which I'm reading and I enjoy. It's just very thought-provoking. But you're in this space also. So you've done the alien perspective, and now you have just done the alien perspective too. And we'll show the trailer in a moment. But could you just talk about these projects and what is your goal and how you went about doing it and who you brought in to discuss this and what they think about alien perspective or what you think about the alien perspective, wherever you want to go.
Sure. Um, Ultimately, what happened again? It all starts with this little video that I made. I'm invited by Alejandro Rojas and Karen Brard to go back to the scene of the crime, which is the International UFO Congress Convention, and for the 25th anniversary, showed the movie there, and to do, they have, essentially a UFO TED Talk is what, we do when we go to these conventions. And I said, yeah, I would love to, but I don't know that that's going to be a good idea. And have a little nervousness about it. And Alejandro's like, why? And I said, well, I don't take myself serious at all, as people can tell. I take my work very serious, but I don't put on any airs. It just is what it is. And I don't know if people are going to be able to, roll with that. And he said, no, 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 this community is great. Trust me. And I go, okay. So I go out there and I tell them all the craziness that I just unpacked for you. Um, and they loved it. They thought it was, funny as hell, and a new appreciation for the film. And so while I'm at the Congress, I'm I'm meeting people that are extremely intelligent, have incredible ideas on this, and 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 I'm seeing that, oh, hasn't really been taken serious. The phenomenon. I take it serious, and I know others do, but by and large, it hasn't really been taken serious. And I start to see that there might be an angle in which to come at this. I'm not quite sure what that's going to be, but there is something here that's more tangible than it's ever been before. And this is a year right after, barely a year, right after the Tic Tac 2017, December
Yeah, so
16th.
right, you're in that came out in 2017, early 2018. So was this the 2018 UFO Congress?
In March. Yeah, March or February.
I think
Yeah.
Tracy and I might have been there for that.
Oh, you might have been. Yeah,
I
I
think
was
we might have
kind of
been.
a newbie to the conventions,
Yeah,
and so I it became apparent that this needed to have a treatment done on it, the UFO stuff that hadn't been done ever before. And because I'd done,
we
yeah,
might have missed you. I think we did 2017 and 2019. Now that I'm
oh, you
thinking,
skipped. It was the leap year for
I
you.
can't. I actually can't remember. Anyway, go on.
Yeah. So I I thought that, because I'd done documentaries for Bravo, A&E, and Discovery, I thought, okay, I'm gonna, pull all the stops and have it be something that has a certain level that I wanted to see in this space. But there's been so many great documentaries in this that I didn't want to be derivative. That would that's not going to get me up every morning and pick up a camera. So what you normally do as an independent filmmaker, or as a filmmaker, period, is you sometimes, when you want to do something new in a space, you see what everyone else has done, and then you do the exact opposite.
Hmm.
And in this case, it's a little mental exercise I do. In this case, I'm going, every single documentary without fail is all from the human's perspective. What if we were to flip that on its head and look at it from the alien's perspective, even as a hypothetical? And what that allowed me to do is it allowed me to get people like Professor Michio Kaku, the guy who created the simulation reality hypothesis, Dr. Nick Bostrom out of Oxford, tons of specialists in fields that normally don't talk about this, but felt comfortable to look at it as a hypothetical. And
Yeah.
what came out of that was these gems left and right. And it was like, oh my gosh. So it really came from going and connecting with the UFO community face to face. And then, it just became this thing that was going to be 15 interviews. 9 months later, I'd be done, like if I'm shooting a documentary for
Yeah.
TV. But as you know, you interview one person, like we start at NASA, and then they say, well, we don't have a protocol for when we actually see extraterrestrial life, when we see a planet with like a grid or a Dyson sphere. We don't have a protocol for that. And I'm like, holy crap. And we have that actually on camera where she admits that. Then that pivots us to somewhere else. And so it ended up going on and on, where it became 66 interviews, 4 countries, and 7 years of my life.
Wow. This is part one
Part one and two,
and
which
two.
it
Okay.
it blossomed to a 4-part series at one point. But there were 2 episodes that were skewed too much. One was full on the alien abduction, the experiencers. It was very specific to all that. And what I'm doing with the documentaries is I'm making them for us, the UFO community, and to say, here is stuff that we've all been kind of pondering, and maybe here's next level in a couple places. and have a couple mic drops of things that we haven't seen before.
Yeah.
But I also have to take the UFO bi-curious who are a little bit interested and convert them and say, hey, come and take a look. This isn't your dad's, UFO documentary.
Hmm.
And so that was the goal anyway. And so it blossomed out to 4 episodes. And then 2 of them, again, one was all about experience. So I pulled that out and that became its own full-length feature doc called The Experiencers, which is coming out either at the end of the summer or end of the year. And then the other one was a subject of a person, an amazing Harvard professor, Pulitzer Prize winning professor, John Mack. And so this is the first John Mack documentary about him. And I've been working on that pretty hardcore for the past year. And so all these things are just now starting to get like a time release.
Wow.
Getting
Okay.
released.
Well, the John Mack one, I think many people will be interested in seeing that when it is available. And I wish you the best success on that. So how about we do this? How about, because I have a 2-minute trailer that you have provided me with, we'll show that, and then we can talk a little bit about the alien perspectives in terms of maybe what your interviewees had to say about it and maybe what you think about it as well. So can we do that?
Perfect.
All right, so let's play that now.
The Vatican has been studying extraterrestrials for a long time. There are usually a few reasons why non-human intelligence would want to interact with human intelligence.
They may be just as curious as we would be about them. They may just be the ultimate intellectual, that they are so curious about who we are that they may even tamper with where we're going.
People are calling this reception of information from non-human intelligence today a download.
Maybe eventually we're going to need to upgrade our minds regularly in order to keep up with the pace of technology.
Alien scientists have the same commitment to coming here and studying the anthill that is us.
Americans would never be in an asymmetric war unless we were invaded by aliens. We need to think about that. Why are they coming here?
I was contacted to take a look at the material and try to see what I can tell about the origin of the sample.
I think it's going to be shocking for a lot of people.
Okay, that was really nicely done. Thank you. I guess what I like is that, there are these very interesting people asking legit questions like, what are they here for? Why might they be interested in us? So I guess my question to you is, what were some of the interesting ideas about why they were here? And what are your ideas about why, if there are non-human intelligences here, I guess I'll leave it that way. If they are here, why do you or the people you've interviewed think that they are here?
Well, the evidence is overwhelming. Again, the baseline for me is John Mack's research. His original book, Abduction, that wasn't the original title. The original title was The Abduction Syndrome, because he looked at it like this was going to be some maybe mental phenomena that was going on, that was happening to highly credible, legit people, and there could be something gleaned from it, whether it's in the material world or in the mental world. But then he would come across evidence like scoop marks, or sometimes people's, their backyard, there would be something out with the landscape. So he couldn't avoid that as well. And so he might have even thought, well, I'm going to figure this out and it'll be this mental ailment and I'll call it the John Mack syndrome and it'll be this thing and I'll be known for that as well. But it became more than that. And the thing about John is that he was open with everything. He would go to Esalen and did meditations, and he was an explorer. And so he wasn't rigid, and that's what it took for someone to look at this. He was a genius. So he was he was just able to say, well, let's look at the data, and the data will tell us where to go with it, which is how it should always be. Forget the stigma. And so that's what it was for me. And that's what it was for all the people that we interviewed. It was like, okay, let's assume that this might be real. What would that look like? And then it became this thing that was actually very manageable and actually made sense that we would do this, because us in the future, we are definitely, if we have a ship that we can time travel, we are going to be doing that. Enough said. And not just, time travel, but we're going to be going to other star systems if we have that technology, warp speed and everything, which has already been proven. I think in the 90s, someone came up with a way to possibly do this.
Miguel Alcubierre did the equations.
Yeah. So it's something that
we need a lot of energy for that. We haven't figured out.
You need a lot of energy, right? Yeah. However, see, here's the thing. My menu for the phenomenon is pretty long. It's not McDonald's. It goes on, and there's specialties of the day, because you look at it and I go, I was having a conversation with Lou Elizondo a few years ago, and I said, I'm really interested in the notion that what is happening is that these crafts and these beings might be traveling in the astral plane. And what I mean by that is, like, when people say they pass on, when we see ghosts and stuff, they call that the astral plane.
Yeah.
And so it is substantiated by people saying they've seen loved ones on these crafts or near these crafts. So if they're both able to exist simultaneously, then there is a possibility that they've figured out how to change their matter, which would be just a matter of vibration, to be able to skip over to that, and they could come in and out. So when we see a ship move and going like this super fast, it's not. It could just be like the kids at aerial school where they said they saw the beings move like almost they were skipping time.
Yes.
It could just be, right, relocating themselves. I'm here, now I'm over here, now I'm over there. And so it opened up a whole bunch of other possibilities. And so, Greg Bishop is a good friend of mine. And, whenever I've got
I didn't realize, I know Greg quite well.
Oh yeah. He
like
Dodger games. He's a great mind. And whenever I have something I want to munch on, I'll just say, hey, Greg, what about this? And Greg will throw down on it and say, no, that's stupid. Or, all right, well, that could be interesting, but let's factor this in. So, these are all hypotheses, but just the notion alone. And then I pushed it with Elizondo, and I said, I think that these crafts, I think there's a possibility that they're living, breathing, that they're a projection.
The crafts themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that they're organic.
How did he respond to that?
He was open to it.
Yeah.
He said, I think you might be right. That was his, direct quote. I think you might be right. And so it's not been verbalized, but it's like, okay, I just want to, again, my whole thing as an independent filmmaker or documentary filmmaker is I want people to play with a notion. That is the theme. And where it takes us, there are no rules, man. It is, we're just going to see. And what comes of that blew my mind, I
think there's a lot of reason to wonder about these craft as having some level of awareness themselves, the craft and the items inside the craft as well. This is an idea that's been rattling around for a while, and yeah. I think there could be something to it personally, definitely.
Well, we recreated the Tic Tac incident in the Alien Perspective Part 1, mostly because, again, I'm a little dyslexic, and when I see that footage of the Tic Tac, the FLIR footage, what I see, because of my generation, is I see Pong. I see this little thing like Atari game of Pong moving back and forth and takes off. That to me isn't what Commander Fravor is recounting. And so I wanted to recreate it and do it with animation, where I could actually get inside the jet and be right over the shoulder of Fravor, and we see what that would look like. And so that became something, an awareness of a whole other dynamic, because now you can see how the whole orchestration of all the action worked. But the thing that was most apparent was that, like you just said, it was an awareness. When Fravor says he's looking at this white Tic Tac type thing, and then it pivots and looks at him, he said, literally, he says, it turned and it looked at me. He doesn't say the craft turned over and repositioned it. He says, it looked at me. And then it took off. So the whole craft had its own awareness, he said. He wasn't separating the pilots from the craft, which, again, I
That's
we
not
can't
something that
look at it.
usually that doesn't come out a lot in Fravor's discussions, but because I wonder, was he just speaking kind of casually, like it looked at me, or was he really like seriously saying the craft looked at me? Could you get a sense on that?
I think it was a lack of being able to describe it in any other way. I think this is
Yeah.
what his experience felt like. And it's telling. I don't take anything for granted. If you're
Right.
saying that, it means at some level you're thinking this thing had its own intelligence. And he
Yeah,
has
yeah.
said that before, right?
Got to agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got to agree. And that, of course, is also something that happens a lot. Like people will all very often feel that there's a consciousness connection between the craft or whatever. Maybe there's an intelligence inside the craft, but it's hard to distinguish sometimes. Like you just feel something coming from that thing. And I know I actually, almost 30 years ago, I myself actually had the one definite UFO sighting that I can say was a UFO was in 1997, 98. And I was with my 1999. I was with my son outside our house. It was a perfect blue sky. I've told this story too many times, but I saw this bright object in a clear sky that completely arrested my attention. And it was unlike anything I'd ever seen by far. It was nothing remotely like it. And I had this thought in my mind that if I were to turn my head away from it, even for an instant, I would never see it again. A thought that made no sense because there was no place for it to hide, but it was in my head. But my son, who was 3 years old, was demanding my attention. I turned to him for a second. I said, "Hang on, I'm watching something." And when I went back to look for it, it was completely gone,
Did you
totally
beat
gone.
your kid after? Did you smack him
Oh
and
yeah, no,
say,
I taught him some lessons. Yeah, that's for
good, good. Yeah. This is UFO time, son.
sure. He was 3 years old and he just needed my attention. And I mean, I almost laughed at the situation at the time because I was like, what are the odds that it would actually be gone when I turned away? But the thought was so powerful in my mind that and then I did, and then it was gone. I spent the next 5 minutes looking all over for the sky for that, and it was just not there. So I felt like there was a connection there. I don't know how else to explain it. And when you go through the research, the literature on these sightings, it is extremely common that people will report this type of thing. I mean, I look
Oh,
at
yeah.
mine. Mine was minor compared with that of many other people, but so I think there's something going on. But back to the alien perspective, I just want to pin you down on this. So what you mentioned abductions, but you didn't really follow through on your thought here. So is that what they're about? Are they scientists here to look at us, or are they invaders trying to muscle in on our territory? Are they here to guide us? They just don't give a crap? Do you have a take on this, or were there guests or people that you interviewed who you were most impressed by their take on this?
I'm sorry, I wasn't paying attention. What'd you say? No. Okay. I will do my
That was
best.
good. That was good. That's like right out of Second City Television. Like this is exactly
Guilty as charged.
most
And with a
definitely.
little bit of Ron Burgundy in there.
Indeed, yes.
So it's funny because it keeps changing as I get more and more items on the menu. Um, I think that what is going on, my buddy Dave Foley, he told me about his UFO um, witnessing of, and he was with Jeremy Corbell, and he said literally, he goes, "This is they were walking, and this was out like in a desert type terrain." And he made the comment just flippantly. Dave did. He says, "This would be the perfect night to see a UFO." And Jeremy says, "Yeah." And they turn, they're walking. And then right away, Jeremy says, "Dave, look over your shoulder." "What?" "Look over your shoulder." He looks over and they see this craft and it's moving along. And now Jeremy is a filmmaker. Jeremy easily could have pulled out his iPhone. Maybe he's got a Samsung. I think he's an iPhone guy. And he could have videotaped it, but he didn't. They watch this thing move along, do its little, here we are, a little bit of showboating, finishes, and then takes off. And they go, "Wow." And then that's it. They don't really discuss it more. They're kind of absorbing it. And then later on, they bring it up. But it wasn't this thing of, oh my God, this is it. Da, da, da.
Yes.
It's exactly like you said, a calmness, an understanding that I see you, you see me, we're doing this little thing. And for Dave, I think it was kind of to reaffirm. And with Jeremy Corbell had never seen a UFO before. And so both of them had this experience, and that was the takeaway.
Yeah.
And so I've not had my experience yet. And so I would complain to Yvonne Smith, who's in my Experiencers documentary, wonderful hypnotherapist. And I said, Yvonne, what the hell's going on? I'm like, at that point, I think it was 5 years into this. And I go, this is all too consuming. I'm not an experiencer that I'm aware of. I've never had anything. I've combed through my past. There's no missing time that I know a flashlight. It's just not there. And she laughed at me and said, yeah, Dean, they don't have to knock on your door to get to you, which was really comforting. And I thought about that, and I thought that it will come to you in the way that it needs to. And if I need to have that experience, I have no doubt that I'm going to see a craft. And I really want to see one. Spielberg hasn't seen one, which keeps causing him to make these movies. He's got a new movie that he's right now shooting, back in the UFO genre. And so, one little tidbit is a buddy of mine who's a documentary filmmaker, doesn't work in this field at all. He's a legit, right, in quotes, documentary filmmaker, and he would give me crap sometimes. And then I get a call from him, and out of the blue, and he says, hey, can we talk? I'm like, yeah, man. I picked up the phone, of course. What's up? He says, so I saw something. And I go, yes. And he says, well, I moved out of my apartment. It was about 4 a.m. and we were on the deck and we were just relaxing. We were exhausted, a long night of moving. And I look out, and about 100 yards away, I see this metallic, silent moving craft. And it has this little blue kind of light around it, almost around the frame of it. And it's moving along, and we're looking at this thing. And he said, it was blatant. I am a UFO. This is it. And it moves along. And then at some point, the little thin blue line encompasses, like wraps around the whole craft. And then he says it just shot off. And I said, wow, dude, I'm so envious. That's great. Congratulations. And he said, no, Dean, you're missing my point. I am jacked up by this. I saw something that should not exist. He said, I'm really having trouble with this. And I don't know if there's someone I could talk to or whatever. You're the only person I knew. This is the definition of ontological shock that John Mack talks about, right? Exactly. And so I always like to give this example. I say, okay, I've got a deck, and you're out in your deck, and you're sitting there and you're enjoying the sun, maybe reading a book, having a lemonade, maybe an Arnold Palmer, and around the corner comes a chimpanzee, and it pokes itself out, and then it tucks back around. How jacked up, how freaked out are you going to be that shouldn't be there? I know what those things are. That is so out of context. What the hell? Mm-hmm. And you go around the corner and it's gone. That is going to mess with you for a long time. Now imagine an alien, NHI, comes around the corner, does the same thing. Exactly. It's not going to be that dissimilar from this should not exist. This should not be here.
Yeah, but it messes with our version of what reality should be and is possible.
Right. So when I think of experiencers, they witness that stuff several times. And here we would be struggling with seeing a chimpanzee come around. So yeah, it is, I've been to a few experiencer groups during the filming. I was one of the only crews allowed to film and at one of these events. Mm-hmm. And the first day I went there, my girlfriend, Allie, who's a co-producer on these, she's fantastic. We were like, well, this will be interesting. When I'm going to this thing and I get there, and then around the table, they introduce everyone. It's like, hi, I'm so-and-so. I'm a chiropractor. I'm a doctor. I'm an archaeologist. I am a Homeland Security supervisor. I've done a TED Talk. And I'm like, wait, what? These are smart, intelligent people, and they're telling their experiences, and the whole time, no BS meter of mine. And I've worked on crime shows, so I know when I'm talking to a convict, when I'm being strung on, nothing. So when I came home, Allie goes, so how was that? Was it, crazy, wild? And I said, no, it was terrifying. I have to give this even more weight than I've been giving it.
Yeah. Yeah, because these are people who, like, I've met many of them as well. I'm sure a lot of people watching are either those people themselves or they know those people. You guys all know who you are. And we all know, all of us who've talked to each other, these individuals are exactly as you described, super high functioning, usually, or frequently, I should say. You get a broad range of people, but these are sincere individuals and with very, very specific recollections of what they've experienced. You cannot tell them that this was an illusion. They know it's not true.
No, and furthermore, one of the stories that I heard which is the most incredible story out of all the experiences I heard this story about this guy who he discovered that his father wasn't who he thought his father was, and his mother had during high school had connected with someone else, we'll say, hooked up, and discovered that, and he discovered it because he went and did his DNA test and discovered that he wasn't the same, composition, if you will, of what he thought his ethnicity was. And so he tracked down his uncle to his biological father and said, "Hey, I'm trying to track down my father, this and that. I am so-and-so, and I'm his son." He's like, "Oh my God, that's so great to meet you, blah, blah." And then he said, so I'm trying to find my father. And he goes, "I'm sorry, sorry to tell you, but your father died about 2 years ago." He goes, "Oh man, what was it, cancer?" Because he's got a kid. He wants to know if that's in his genes. And he's like, "No, your father wasn't well." What do you mean? "Well, he drank a lot." It's like, "Oh, alcoholism, okay." Yeah, he drank a lot because, he believed that he was abducted by extraterrestrials. And, oh my God, so did he die of alcohol? And he goes, "No, he died of suicide by cop." He couldn't stand it any longer, so he went to, I don't know if it was a liquor store, I don't remember the specifics, but he went and caused a commotion and ran at a cop with a knife, and they gunned him down. And he burst out crying because he's like, "I could have told him, 'You're not crazy, Dad. I grew up with my other family having these experiences as a kid.'" And so that to me, it's a tragedy. And so that to me is one of the reasons why I'm doing this, is to say, okay, stigma needs to go. That needs to just be eradicated, So.
Wow. That's incredible. I don't think I've ever heard that before. That's an amazing story. And I'm very glad you were able to share that. Wow. So I'm trying to think of other things I want to ask you. We're going to follow up. I have a whole series of other questions. I want to ask you.
I didn't answer your question though.
But I just was going to say, you have not answered my question. So how do you perceive the alien perspective? I'm going to ask you. Forget your guest, forget the people you interviewed. What do you perceive as the alien perspective?
All right. So the alien perspective is our perspective. It is what we are going to be doing in the future when we have evolved to that apex where we've gone from a type 1 species, which we're not even a type 1. We can't control our sun. We can't terraform a planet. We are so young. 1969, we're on the moon. 1869, we're horse buggy torches.
Yeah, exactly.
And so it gets frustrating for anyone who wants to get answers. And I understand that. But I keep tempering everyone's expectations when they talk about disclosure and everything. I keep saying, I know, I get that. But right now, we're getting teasers. We're not even getting a trailer to what is coming, because we're not able to match that. So when I think of the alien's perspective, I think of projecting our perspective out. What would we think of another species that isn't as advanced as we are? Now, Michio Kaku will say they would be bored. It would be like, us talking to ants. And Dave Foley would shoot back, well, we have those. They're called entomologists. So curiosity is something that's carried with all species. So when I think of the alien's perspective, what has kept them alive or kept them an intelligent species is one thing. And it's where all the advances come from, everything, which is curiosity. So I think from my point of view, their perspective on us is that we are a species that is advancing at an alarming rate, where our technology, it's kind of like a little cat. A kitten will run down the hallway and its hind legs will run too fast and it'll tumble over because it hasn't coordinated itself. That's what I think they're looking at us. I think they're going, again, we can look at all the war and all the craziness we do, but we can also look at music. We can also look at humor. We can look at how we are there for each other. Mr. Rogers said, when the crap hits a fan, look at the people who are coming to help. And they are there. That is humans at their best. So I think they're looking at us with their own menu and saying, okay, they have this and that quality, etc. But as far as them coming in and saying, all right, we're going to show you how to do things, it'd be great for them to clean up our environment, but we messed up our room. Why should we have a parent come in and clean it up? Because we're just going to mess it up again until we figured out how to take care of it and how to respect it. And so I think that they're looking at us and going, wow, these guys, they still got some wrinkles in the sheets to iron out. Hopefully that answers that question.
No,
but I grapple with that still.
I think that's an interesting perspective. So you're not, I mean, I gather that you tend to see them as, not hostile to us, kind of overseeing us, looking at us as a species that certainly needs more development. And if they're able to help, they would, but really maybe not able to help as much as we would like for them to help. Because what we want is a Deus Ex Machina. We want them to bail us out. Like everyone wants that because we know we can't solve our own problems. Most of us probably feel that way. We're like, aliens, save us. But I've thought about this a lot too. I just don't think that would be possible in any way. But then there's the possibility of, like, you hear about infiltration, and there's, at least in the trailer, you had Travis Taylor talking a little bit about that. And I definitely had the sense that he's thinking maybe we have something to be concerned about.
Yeah. If we do have something to be concerned about, I have not seen credible evidence of a repeated nature. We've never heard of a Tic Tac dropping a bomb over some country. We don't, I know that Whitley Strieber sometimes will talk about, some of these beings that, the concern is that they will eat your soul or something. And I was joking with him and I said, what does a soul taste like? Does it taste like chicken? I'm just curious. I think that all souls are kind of equal. And that kind of comforts me that the Dalai Lama's soul is equal to ours. It's maybe more developed, but as a life form in existence, I think, again, this is just my belief, but I think that we're all part of the source. We're all part of something, and that whatever created everything, that's God for me, and that we all come from that. And I think that this planet, just like for the aliens, most likely no one came to their planet and cleaned up their messes.
Yeah.
They had to evolve to a point where it's like going through college and graduating or grad school. Right now, I mean, there's an argument that we're in nursery school. We're not even in elementary school full on. But we have the potential to get there. And so I'm hopeful for that, but I feel like, I'm just starting to wrestle with this idea of what would happen if we did not have any experiences with these crafts or these NHIs. What would mankind be like without that narrative? I haven't heard anyone
question.
Yeah.
If there was no UFO phenomenon that anyone acknowledged or recognized, I wonder, would we feel more isolated? Would we feel less hopeful?
And what is the point of that? Because they know that they are affecting us, like the Prime Directive. They're breaking the Prime Directive just by being seen, right?
Yeah.
So they are doing subtle influences. They can't help not to be doing subtle influences.
I'm really glad I asked you on this program, Dean, because one thing that I like to present on this program is like philosophical perspectives, just different ways of understanding this phenomenon, that anyone who's on this channel has some kind of interest in the UFO subject. And we can keep chasing all the latest headlines, like who said this? I don't believe him. This person is good. This person's bad. This newest claim and whatever. And those are interesting. But I personally, I get the most engagement when we're just sitting around thinking about this. Who are these other beings? What might they be here for? How does this affect us at a deeper emotional level, which you really wonderfully described in your own life. And so I'm really glad. I'm actually really, I didn't know what this would, I had no idea where this conversation would go.
Well, either did I. I thought it was going to go in the toilet myself. I'm surprised no, all serious aside, that's why I love this community, because I'm meeting great minds like you who have been writing about this from all these different angles. And no doubt there's going to be crossover. You're next gen in my book because, well, you've done 3 books on underwater submersibles alone. You drill down, and for me, I drill down in my ways, but people like you and Jacques Vallée and others, they spend time where they're going to focus on that one thing, and it's so well thought out because you guys want to understand this, regardless of the audience who's going to read this, whatever. It's like you need to understand this, that curiosity, and so no, that
totally
means a lot to me. Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah. Actually, a lot of your ideas about why they are here, and as it relates to our own level of development, like I'm pretty much on board, I think, with most of those things that you were saying. And I've been kicking that around quite a bit myself. And I'm sure that I will be presenting these ideas here on this channel in future programs as well, because they're relevant, and I enjoy thinking out loud about a lot of those things as well. I tend to think that we're on the cusp, we're in the midst really of a massive transformation of our species right now. I don't even know if it's good or bad. It could be both. It could be neither. It is what it is. The rapid development that we're going through now technologically, I'm just going to take a guess that this rapid kind of hockey stick or exponential graph that we seem to be on might very well be a universal development. It might just be something that once a species gets science, as it were, and builds upon itself, that it just might follow that very, very sharp incline, which I think in a lot of ways is disruptive to our species. Like there are times when I like to think, can we just go a little more slowly with all of this? But what I want is not relevant. And it is what it is. And I suspect they have probably gone through some version of this, and I tend to think they're watching us go through this transition that they may have gone through as well. And when we come out on the other side of this, I suspect we'll have a different understanding of like quantum physics, of consciousness itself, and maybe the structure of reality, the fabric of reality. And then perhaps we might be able to have a real conversation, or at least the beginnings of a conversation with them about certain things. It'd be like, you go back 1,000 years, just 1,000 years into medieval Europe, you find the smartest people there, and you would still not be able to talk to them about almost anything in our world without their head exploding. It would just not be possible. There's no common frame of reference. And now here we are, presumably dealing with another species that's just, even maybe further ahead of us. So I don't know that there's really an easy point of communication at this time, but maybe in the future there might be a way.
Well, it's interesting because I've now been using the same term hockey stick, not just because of hockey being great. But you can't use Moore's Law anymore. Moore's Law was like retired 10 or 15 years ago.
Was it?
Yeah, technology
I thought it was still
went
kind of going, no?
As far as I know, we're doing things are close enough that because the gradual buildup was pretty straightforward. It was very predictable. And then it shot like this with the integrated circuits. It's like, it's kind of hard to even see the tip of it, where it's going. But for me, we're living off the charts. Like you said, the main point was that we have technology now that we are not mature enough for. And so it's kind of like when we were on the panel for the underwater submersibles, we were talking about the idea that how do we get these safeguards? Do these aliens have safeguards so they don't pervert the technology and weaponize it?
Yeah.
And I said something to the effect of, I think maybe it's that they're so evolved that they know, as a evolved species, not to put their finger in the light socket, because zapping themselves is going to zap everyone. And so we almost have to have a hive mentality. And so the question is, will the technology elevate our evolution, our our spiritual and mental evolution? I don't know. I think it's still a kid that has this new toy that's just shooting everything in sight. And so, even though people will say there's less violence than there ever has been on the planet, this or that, the violence that there is because of the tools and the technology we have, it's like almost thank God we haven't discovered on our own gravity, because we're going to be flying people left and right off the planet that we don't like, right? So we have to get to a certain place where we earn it, and we, get our diploma. You're not going to give a diploma to, a 3-year-old. But the thing that's frustrating in the UFO community is that when I look out and you do the same thing, you look at your audience, these people can handle it. But we're only, it's the old adage, only strong as our weakest link.
But can everyone have exactly the weakest link?
Yeah.
If we had a solution to free energy, infinite energy, great. We can have free heating or free air conditioning for the rest of all time. But what if you can blow up the Atlantic Ocean with a weapon that you develop on it, and someone's just going to do it?
Well,
And
there's a
how do we know?
saying. Yeah, there's a saying in my business, which is, if you show the gun in the first act, you have to shoot it. You have to use it in the third act. And so, if we have this invention, it's going to get used. We did that with the nuclear bomb, the hydrogen bomb, and whatever technology. Yeah. So I think, the only thing that's a little bit disheartening is, is that the animals that are on this planet, from primates to, to ants, all of them are hanging in there based on what we do, to this planet. And so, without getting too much into it, it all fits in. And so I kind of feel like, we know what the right course of action is, but how do you get people to do that? I think part of me, like I said earlier on, is of being of service, is to be able maybe to shine light. And at the end of the Alien Perspective Part 2, I make a very black and white almost example of what could happen playing out through animation. That one scene, and that I feel is something that, I'm rooting for. I'm rooting for all of us. Yeah. I have a kid, so do you. I don't think about them, just them. I think about their kids and their kids, et cetera. And then also I just think about, again, how, amazing this planet is. And with technology, when we do have new technology, it usually comes with wonderment and excitement, and when it's utilized in the right way. And so I am excited for that, but with AI and everything, man, all bets are off.
Yeah, well, this is a series of conversations. Maybe we'll return to this. Before we go, I'm going to have links below to Alien Perspective 1 and 2, and whatever relevant platforms, you just give those to me and I'll put them down below. I will definitely want a link to your awesome legendary found footage. But then I'm wondering also if we should link to a cover from a mysterious group called ABBA. And I don't know if you would like for people to see that. May we share that we also discovered a mutual, yes, don't laugh, people, a mutual appreciation of the great group known as ABBA.
I will have my girlfriend Allie sign a release, and we might be able to make that happen.
It's pretty cool. Very much underappreciated in my opinion. View count on that needs to go up. So maybe we'll have a little link for that as a little surprise for people. I enjoyed it.
My one and only music video. Yes. Okay.
Tracy and I are actually big fans of a lot of that genre, and we will no kidding, we'll play ABBA music every now and then. We'll get into it. We don't just play it. We'll get into it.
No,
so now you know.
Well, here's funny about ABBA. So I had this spiritual teacher who we were all listening to ABBA. It happened to be on and everything. It wasn't a concentrated thing. We were listening to the Beatles. We were listening to stuff from the 90s and 2000s as well. But it came up and it was, I think it was Dancing Queen. Mm-hmm. And he said that the reason why ABBA caught on in such a huge way, to the chagrin of a lot of other musicians and other music lovers, is that it has this progression that is very appealing for a vibration, if you will, but it's very appealing. The notes and everything are very appealing for emotions. And so when you're listening to like Dancing Queen, it has like 4 different octaves where it's going, you can dance, having the time. I mean, it keeps going and building, and that people need to have that type of, which is why when you
It
go
feels
and
great. Like their music feels
It's
great.
gospel music, dude. It's gospel music where you go and you listen to this and it's transcending. So yeah, I know it's super commercial and everything, and people are going to now hate on us, but whatever.
No, they won't. They're gonna love it. I have a cousin who I adore, and she's brilliant. And if she hears this, she'll know who she is. She's a lifelong reader of like New Yorker, and she listens to jazz music. She's a big John Coltrane fan. Who I love John Coltrane, and I love that jazz. But like serious music,
Yeah.
10 plus years ago, probably 15 years ago, I just said to her, "Yeah, I kind of like ABBA," and she looked at me like, "Oh, I'm so disappointed in you." Like that was the look I got from her. I don't know if she actually felt that way, but that's what it looked like. But I stuck by my guns.
Good.
I dig the ABBA.
Yeah. Don't let anyone mess with your.
No way, man.
No. This is your true self. Don't let them ABBA shame you.
Very good, very good. So we're gonna have that link below because you and Abby are really quite remarkable on that. I've just got to say, it was very good. So I got nothing else here, Dean. I honestly, you just like this is a lot more fun than probably any other interview that I remember having on this program. So this is just really awesome. I want to thank you for that.
Thank you. That means a lot to me, Richard. I love everything you're doing, and I look forward to the next stuff coming out of you.
Thanks so very much. I want to thank everyone for being on this little ride with Dean Alioto and myself. Throw your comments down below. I want to know what you think about all of this, and I want to know if you enjoyed this as well. And Dean's links will be below as well. And we will be back. I will be back sometime soon. I want to thank you all again. If you like this video, hit the like button, share it, subscribe to my channel. And if you really like what I do, go to my website, richardallenmembers.com, where I do this kind of thing. And also other UFO related things on a regular basis there. That's it. Thank you very much. Let's keep fighting the good fight. Later.